Hi everyone, Queeveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to have a look ahead to the coming month. We are going to look ahead to June, which is the month of the summer solstice, but we're not going to talk about the summer solstice too much. Just before we go all the way forward to June, we're going to look ahead to the end of this month, which is not too far in the future now. We're looking ahead to the new moon. And there's Mercury. There's Mercury during the day. So if you had the right kind of telescope, perhaps you'd be able to observe Mercury if you protect your telescope in the right way. And Mercury is visible during the day through telescopes. If it's in the right location, never point your telescope directly at the sun. The moon isn't really going to be visible there. It's going to be an incredibly narrow crescent. 7%? On this channel, we've seen the moon at, I think, 1%, or sorry, 0.1. This is 0.7, 0.1%. I think we have seen the moon even less illuminated than this, though on the other side. Now, we're going to move forward to see if we can get the moon less illuminated than this during the day, but this is as new as the moon is going to get, I think, for us here in Ireland, before it crosses over to the other side of the sun. So we can see there down to 0.4%, and just before it hits the horizon is that 0.3 it is. So we can see that the moon there isn't directly in front of the sun. By the next day, well, there's the moon at 0.8% illuminated, but we'll head back to morning time and that should go down, and we'll be able to see, oh, very close to actually new, yeah, 0.1% illuminated. So we're seeing the moon newer on the morning of the 27th than we are at sunset on the 26th, but we're not really seeing the moon for either of those dates. While the moon, well, I suppose we can check this out, while the moon is on the other side of the planet, while the moon and the sun are over different areas, the moon will be passing, over the sun. So we can see that happening here. The moon doesn't exactly line up with the sun. We can see it kind of passing over the sun there. And that's because the moon is following our equator. We're a little bit tilted with regard to the sun, so the moon doesn't line up directly with the sun. And we can see that's a pretty big distance. The moon is pretty far from lining up with the sun. Of course, we're up here in Ireland, so we're seeing things at a little bit of an angle as well. But this is why we don't get solar eclipses every month, because the moon can be pretty far from lining up with the sun. It's not just that it misses it a little. The variation here is, a few degrees in the sky. That's an angle we could measure. It's an angle we could measure, but I don't think I will do it just yet. We'll save that for another time. Instead, we are going to continue to push ahead to the next full moon, which is coming in June. So here we are, 99.6%. I think that is when it's rising. We should get it up to 99.7% during the very, very short night. So it looks like we are looking at a pretty much a countryside sky here. So let's pull things back. Yes, a perfect dark sky there. So let's pull things back to a more normal sky. I usually go with around Bartle class 5, because that is roughly what we get in Cork City, or at least not so much in the exact city centre. I can't speak to exactly how dark Patrick Street, the main street of Cork City, I can't speak to how dark that is at midnight. I haven't seen the sky from there at midnight, certainly in quite a while. But I do know that close to the city centre, we can still see things pretty much like this. Just leaving the sun go down here, pretty much like this. We can certainly see Mars, we can certainly see a lot of the brighter stars. And this is this is the 12th, so we're still very, very close to the summer solstice, but we're also with the full moon, the night of the full moon here. So we'll take a quick look just to make sure that I haven't gone way past it. We've moved forward to the wrong night. So on the 11th, just after midnight on the 11th, so we're seeing the full moon rise before midnight on the 10th. Just about. So let's take a look here. We're seeing the moon rise there at just 20 past 10. It skirts over the southern horizon and then it sets just about 4 o'clock. So the moon is barely in the sky at all. We're barely seeing the moon at all. And even for part of the time we're seeing the moon, the sky isn't that dark. It would be hard pressed to call this nighttime. There's still a lot of light from the sun in the sky. This is certainly twilight. And the moon isn't listing, of course the moon doesn't list when twilight is, that would be the sun, but the sun will list when twilight is when we click on it. So we can see there the sky is darkening, it's darkening. We're still seeing a little bit of sunset glow there, but the sky will continue to darken. It will get a darkest point just about here. But there's still quite a bit of light in the sky. There's still quite a bit of sunlight, and that is because we are so close to the summer solstice. So not only is the moon going to be visible for what seems like a very short amount of time, it's also going to be a very, very short night, if you can call it night at all. Technically, it is twilight, and we can show that by clicking on the sun. So here is the sun, and over here at the side, we can see morning twilight, evening twilight, daytime, when it's rising, when it's setting. So this should help us to see. So the sun is setting there at just about 10 o'clock, just before 10 o'clock. So this is the time, roughly the time that we're getting for sunset. The sun is now set. Evening twilight is going to continue for quite a while. So that is still considered evening twilight. Now this is showing a cutoff, so I think it's stopping here, or potentially it's starting here. Potentially that is the start of evening twilight, but we'll move through. We're getting some level of darkness around the time that the moon rises. This would be considered nighttime, of course, by most people, but there are certain levels of brightness that are considered types of twilight. Civil twilight and nautical twilight and astronomical twilight are all different levels, and we do not get past astronomical twilight here in Ireland. That is as dark as it gets. And then the sun starts to come up again. We're seeing that sunlight certainly by 4 o'clock. And of course, there's our twilight there at 4:30. So we're seeing the sunlight there at 4 o'clock, even though it's not showing twilight until 4:30. So that could, I'll have to double check by moving into winter, but that could be an indication that stellarium is, showing that we're not actually going to get much twilight at all. We can compare it to the midwinter, the winter solstice, to see. Night time still isn't being listed, but we can see there daytime 7 hours 46 minutes. So I'm not sure if that's telling me it's 7 o'clock, 46 minutes past 7 o'clock, as these would be. This is for 20 to 8 in the morning. So we can see there the sun's rising at just a little after 8:30, but our twilight is starting there at just about 8 o'clock. This is definitely some twilight, even though morning twilight there is listed at 8. So that is enough of an investigation for me to say that stellarium is listing presumably civil twilight, which is the kind of first rank of twilight before the streetlights come on, and it's ignoring nautical twilight and astronomical twilight, because this is certainly nautical twilight. You can pretty much see what you're doing on a ship, on the deck of a ship, at this level of brightness. And then coming back to here, this is still also twilight. This is astronomical twilight. There is enough light in the sky that it would interfere with astronomical observations. True darkness comes at around here in winter. So this is showing what I think their daytime 0, and then the sun back up into the sky. So I'm not sure why it resets the daytime to 0, but that's probably just a quirk of the programming. We can see the daytime there increasing, and reaching a peak where the day length is given at 16 hours and 43 minutes for midsummer. So a 16-hour day, much longer than the 12-hour day we'd expect. And that 16-hour day is buttressed by hours of twilight. We can see there, if we're getting our sunrise at just a bit after 5 and our morning twilight is beginning at just a bit after 4, that's already almost an hour of what I would say is civil twilight. Astronomical twilight is a whole other thing, and the sky just isn't going to get that dark. But this does also give us, unfortunately, we have traveled very far back in time. That happens occasionally. So unfortunately, we are not going to get true night very, very soon. We're not going to get true night for a little bit of time, but it is still, I typed in 6 while there was a 31 day, but we're not going to get 31 days in the 6th month, so it jumped to the 7th month. There are a couple of things that Stellarium will sort of take care of for you. Stellarium knows how many days are in every month in the calendar, so that's handy. we are not going to get any nighttime pretty much for all of the month of June. We're not going to get real nighttime. We'll barely get astronomical twilight. And I will double check the definitions, because I think that maybe not in Cork, maybe it's in slightly further north in Ireland, but I do think there's parts of Ireland that don't even get astronomical twilight. But that is something I will double check for next time. Just before we entirely finish up, we're still looking quite far forward here, so let's come back to this month just to get the Virgo cluster of galaxies in a reasonable position in the sky at a reasonable time when it's reasonably dark. I know that we're looking out here somewhere, so we'll just grab a galaxy. Doesn't really matter which one. We've got the nebula there, so that should be Vindamayatrix, which means, yeah, I'm already seeing fuzzy shapes. There's a fuzzy one. I just want to go with one that's easy to see for now. Okay, this one looks nice. I think that's the lost galaxy of Copeland. It looks nice, which is, you know, of course, a big consideration if you're trying to look for something in the sky. All right, so with the gigantic binoculars, and these are gigantic binoculars. With the gigantic binoculars, you can definitely see those galaxies. But it's gigantic, you'd expect to. So, okay, this is a reasonable binoculars, and those definitely look like smudges rather than distinct galaxies. And that's just at a Bartle class 5. If we go to a Bartle class, let's say 3, there we go. They definitely look like galaxies to me. We could probably pull it off with even a smaller binoculars. There we go. I think that's the smallest. No, this is the smallest. Yeah, this is the smallest binoculars that Stellarium will simulate. And there they are. Definitely galaxies. So there was a commenter who asked a question, what would those galaxies look like if you just had a binoculars in a Bartle class 3 or 4? They will look at least like smudges. Honestly, you can kind of see the arms of that one. So they are worthwhile targets, at least those ones. And Markarian's chain. There we go. There's Markarian's chain. I mentioned this in a recent video. They actually look pretty good. So binoculars in a Bartle class 3 or 4 looking at these galaxies, absolutely you can see something of interest. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it. If you enjoy this kind of content, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also read some of this information on my website, queebeanscontent.ie. And most importantly, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you back here next time.